If you keep running into a brick wall 100 times, that's not resilience, that's stupidity. Hi, Ferris here. This concludes our mini-series on the entrepreneurial mindset. Previously, we spoke about the learning mindset as a starting point, and we covered 3 traits: that hustle, getting stuff done, getting comfortable with the unknowns, and being thirsty to learn. In this episode, I'll cover 2 traits. One is to have that high sense of ownership and resilience. To get your startup off the ground, it requires a lot of work. You have to give it everything that you have. The chores, the things you despise to do, you either have to do it or hire someone to do it for you. But it's your business. And that's the sense of responsibility and the sense of ownership I'm talking about, is to own what needs to be done and do it. Ownership is not about the title. Yeah, you're the CEO, you're the owner, you're the boss. But do you take responsibility, or do you blame others when things go wrong? You play events around you, your partner, your employees, your customers, the government. It doesn't matter. You have to take responsibility. You have to take ownership. They might have culpability, yes, but you take and you own responsibility. If a project manager misses a deadline, they did not complete the project on time, do you blame them, or do you look into what caused this delay? Maybe they were not properly trained. Maybe there were circumstances outside of their control. Maybe you did not give them all the details. So instead of blaming others, look at what you can do to improve the situation. Don't be a victim. Famed author and consultant Jim Collins, he describes level 5 leaders as those who contribute and attribute success to factors other than themselves. They look out the window. But when things go poorly, they look at the mirror and blame themselves. They take responsibility. Ownership and commitment go hand in hand. Commitment is your willingness to deliver results. When my partner and I started our first business, and when we had the opportunity to pitch a client, the client would give us 3 options to set up a date for the pitch. We always took the first possible date and time. We don't want to delay the sale by a week and the contract by a week and collecting revenue by a week if we can. So taking these sales calls and making it a priority ahead of any non-sales activity was very important to us. We once made a pitch to an overseas client, a major global airliner. And the first possible date they gave us, and the time was 2 a.m. our time. We said yes, we're ready to pitch. We never told the client it was 2 a.m. in the morning. We don't want to sound desperate, but we were ready to pitch. We went on this call and we delivered, and luckily we closed the deal. We were committed to making a project like this happen, even if it interrupted our sleep schedule. It's worth mentioning that on this 2 a.m. call, one of our senior consultants, John, who was supporting our sales activities, he learned about this major global airliner, and he wanted to be with us on the sales pitch. And I said, hey, John, it's 2 a.m., don't worry about it, but he insisted. And he joined the call, and he was a key contributor to this call for us to close that deal. And the point I want to highlight here is, when you are going above and beyond, when you are talking the talk and walking the walk, your team members will do magic. They'll do the impossible to support your vision and to support you and to support the growth of your business. Finally, and this is probably the most important commitment I want you to make, is a commitment to your team. Those who support you and support your vision, those who work hard, those who give it their best, make sure if you make a commitment along your growth, as you're making it, as you're struggling, if you're making promises to increase pay, if you're making promises to increase bonuses, if you're making promises to give a share of the equity, make sure you deliver on those commitments. So that's on commitment and ownership. Next, we'll talk about trait number 5, and that's resilience. To be resilient, get up after you fall. For all the talk about grinding, hustling, working hard, facing fears, none of it matters if you're not resilient. In science and engineering, resilience relates to a material's ability to recover its size and shape after it's been stretched or deformed. For entrepreneurs, resilience is how fast you get up after you fail. If you're looking for investment, you're looking for a loan, and you make a few calls and you get a rejection, the investor says no, the bank says no, how fast do you learn from those encounters and call the next investor? Don't quit till you secure the cash that you need to grow the business. It's important not just to get back up, but also to learn from the setback and the failure. If you keep running into a brick wall 100 times, that's not resilience, that's stupidity. Once we had a client approach us to develop a relationship app like eHarmony and Match.com. And they were willing to pay $17,000. That was a lot of money for us at the time. So we learned how to do parts of the project, and we hired a contractor, a third-party contractor, to help us with some of the implementation, some of the technical work. That contractor delivered terrible results, terrible user experience. The whole functionality of the app was not working. And after months and months and months of back and forth, the client was not happy, the end product was half-baked. So we ended up wrapping up this project. We parted ways with the contractor and with the client. We ended up paying the contractor in full and not collecting half of the money from the client. We felt bad we were not able to deliver to the expectations of the client. We could have tucked our tail and decided to never develop apps again, but that's not what we did. With that resilient mindset, we looked at what went wrong and we learned from it. One, we learned that in these types of complex projects, it's really important to define and document all the requirements, all the specs, with your client and with your contractors. The second thing, and we knew there was a huge market out there for developing apps. So instead of relying on third-party contractors, not very reliable at times, we actually hired our own specialized staff and grew that business line, which became very, very profitable. Instead of running away from developing apps or whatever areas you failed in, find opportunities, double down on what works, and especially if there's a market for what you sell, and do it better the next time. Let's recap. Starting a business is exciting, but you can have the best idea in the world and you have the best timing in the world. If you don't have these 5 traits, it's going to be very challenging for you to succeed. Trait number 1, the hustle, get stuff done. Trait number 2, getting comfortable with unknowns. Trait number 3, be thirsty to learn. Have that sense of curiosity. Trait number 4, have that high sense of ownership and commitment. And trait number 5 is resilience. Be resilient. Get back up as soon as you fail. Hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you about how you're scaling your business, about the mindset, about how you're becoming more resilient and you're learning from your setbacks. Thank you so much. And don't forget to give back. Today's thought is become a mentor. There are programs for mentorship. Go ahead and sign up for one.